Welcome, where business buying banter meets no BS reality. Get ready to dive into the world of buying and selling businesses without the fluff and fancy jargon. Whether you're a seasoned business buying pro or a curious aspiring entrepreneur, this is where the real talk happens. Because in business, there's no room for sugarcoating. Let's get down to the brass tacks.
Hello, are you ready? It's showtime, Richard.
Hello there. How are ya?
I'm doing great.
Good. That's really good.
I was listening to our opening little jiggity jig there. The no bullshit business buying banter. Beep. I probably need a beep on that one. You know what I was thinking? We're gonna give it to our audience like we do, the no BS. And right before showtime, we were talking about searchers. Can we not deliver the BS there as well? I mean, it's changing. The landscape is changing, Richard.
It's getting unbelievably crowded. That's part of the problem. The industry has always been rampant with a massive failure rate, meaning the amount of people that look to buy a business that can actually complete a transaction has always been over 90%. Numbers gone higher now. It's about 94. And there's a lot more people in the space. On the one hand, it's wonderful because personally, I love to see as many people as possible become entrepreneurs. The flip side of it is really this proliferation of bad information, misinformation, and outright lies that really suck people in thinking that they can make acquisitions when they have no money, no track record, no collateral, no assets, no nothing, and can get into this and buy businesses for no money down and all this wonderful stuff. And it's, and I don't blame the searchers. I mean, I even have a problem with the word searcher, to be honest with you, because you're not searching. I mean, it's, brokers sort of laugh at that, but that's a derivative of, a funded search. But it's, it's a problem. I mean, they, and there's people, they're people with hopes and dreams like all of us, and just getting bad information.
Bad information. The days of an actual individual that wants to be a private family-owned small business owner acquiring a privately held family-owned established business, it's becoming less and more of a different mindset of someone out there looking to buy a business with just 1% down, which there are lenders out there, maybe they will take that on case by case. I hear it all the time because I will reach out to my lenders. I'm like, I'm hearing that banks are doing deals with 1% down, and the other 9% is coming from non-family, unknown investors that have nothing to do with the 1% owner operator that wants to buy this $3 to $5 million business. And there are lenders out there, front end lenders, that are saying, oh yeah, we can get that done. Well, let's reel it in because we just went fishing, and now let's put the package on the underwriter or chief of credit's desk and let's see what he has to say.
Yeah, I mean, some of those deals get done. They don't get done very often with formalized SBA, because there are guidelines. And yes, every bank has their own rules and regulations and criteria. So you have this umbrella, statement of work, or whatever they call the overall criteria with the SBA. But not every, and we've talked about it, many times, not every bank has to comply with each of those individual criteria. They make their own rules, if you will. There's still plenty of deals that get done through, with investors, with seller financing, with SBA and seller financing, with investor and some other commercial loans. So there is this buffet of potential ways to finance your business. But on the lower end, where there's this real misconception, even businesses, that you cite, and even smaller than that, the smaller the business, the more you rule out those possible lenders, commercial banks or investors or those type of things, or institutional lenders, they get ruled out. And so people are looking to complete transactions oftentimes in a space where that third party capital is not going to participate.
That's right.
And they go down the road
Mhm.
trying to find a business and then think they're going to find the financing after. And one of the most important things is, irrespective of what you're looking, what your financing, what your third party lender is going to be, who it is,
Mm.
irrespective of that, is you got to start it early.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, you should know what you're up against. Because if you think you're going to get an SBA loan and you can't, you got to pivot. And if
That's
you
right.
think you're going to get, a commercial loan from a bank and you can't get one, well, you got to pivot. And so
Mhm.
you keep your options available. I see more and more where, searchers, if you will, they go down the road, they find business and then they're scrambling to get financing. And then they realize like these avenues that they thought, they're just not available.
Right.
Just because
Mhm.
of information.
That's right. Misinformation. Um, One lender that I spoke to yesterday did tell me he had funded one deal with 1% down, but there was so many strengths to the proposed buyer, as in sufficient equity in his home to take as additional collateral on a $4 million swing of intangible assets, which still blows my mind because I know a lot of banks that I worked for in the past, they would say, hell no, we ain't touching that. That's just
Right.
too much risk.
Right.
But every bank has their own credit policies. Every bank has portfolios that live and die, and
Yep.
every bank has portfolios that certain industries struggle, others are successful. It's we're playing poker, Richard.
Playing poker. And it's just, as you were talking, we were going through some of these scenarios. I was trying to think, I was thinking about fake news, like it's like
Yeah.
fake news. It's really unfortunate. I always I wrestle with it, and from my own standpoint of looking at these people again who have hopes and dreams and want to get this accomplished. They've been trying for infinitely more aggressively in the last year or so because of all this information that's in social media and these shorts and these videos and YouTubes, and they're very, very misleading and trying to get people to reel them back in to say, look, you got to start breathing oxygen from this planet. And it's the same thing goes for sellers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
sellers are as guilty thinking that valuations that they read about on Wall Street apply to their business on Main Street. And
Mhm.
so, we did a show on this as far as advisors are concerned. The best thing you could do to yourself for yourself is align yourself with people who are going to tell you what you need to hear, not what
Mhm.
you want to hear. And there's not going to be any BS to them. Whether that results in sometimes you reach a conclusion, a buyer saying, I can't get this done. I'm
Right.
not in a position today to get this done. And so you have to set your goals for a couple of years down the road, but you need to take advice um, from the proper sources.
That's right. And if you're dealing with a source, a direct lender, let's say, and they don't even have a full package, don't even know what the seller side of the transaction looks like. They don't even know the industry, the cash flow. They just have a buyer that's coming to the table. I want to do this with 1% down. And they've got 40 grand in their personal savings account, and that's it. And they're a renter and they want to buy a $3 to $5 million business. And that direct SBA lender saying, oh, yeah, we can get that done with 1%. I'm going to be transparent and say this is going to be a tough road.
Well, tough is an understatement, right? I mean, you're being honest and say it's tough. At the very least, it's going to be really tough. And one of the things that's like as a sidebar to all of that is the individual that's looking to do this. It's nothing negative against them because obviously it's something they want to accomplish. They'd like to do it with 1% down because these are the assets that they have, but they also need to be realistic. We talked about that. What happens if the business goes south a little bit?
Mhm.
Very often businesses decline the first 3 months after a sale. It's very normal that everybody's getting used to a new way of life, if you will.
That's
And
right.
and so, yes, you may get some working capital from your lender, but what if that working capital doesn't last long enough? And then you need to put some money in the business. I know most businesses that I've owned, it came a point outside of a few of them, I had to put some of my own capital in, especially at the beginning. Never mind just the acquisition at the beginning. It's, making payroll, and it required plenty of times that I did that. And so if you're faced with that situation, I mean, it's not dissimilar to buying too much of a house. And if you can't make the
Yep.
mortgage payments, the difference is, the house will be standing. But
Mhm.
if the business needs money and you can't put it in, the business is going to continue to decline. The house will still stand, but the business is going to continue to
Mhm.
decline. And you can put yourself in a pretty rough position. So you have to do this in a really good way and real world way, and you know not get delusional about all of it. That's a big problem.
Delusional is right. It is a big problem. And when you want to buy a business that big and have the bank put up 90% of the collateral with 9% of the down payment coming from investors that don't really give a flying hoot if the loan goes good or bad because they're not guaranteeing, and they're a renter. Come on now, people. That's what we're seeing today. This is
Yeah.
what is happening in our new landscape.
Yeah, and it should continue for a while. Deals are getting more creative. Deals are still getting done. I mean, I'm probably busier than I've ever been,
Mhm.
so that's a good thing. So deals do get done. There's more creative financing, bringing in other sources of financing are required. But getting leverage is terrific
Mhm.
unless it's not.
Right?
It's
Yeah,
like everybody wants leverage, but the leverage has to make sense for the acquisition. And you
right.
don't want to give yourself one of these because you're going to get in trouble in a hurry. And
Yeah.
so
Yep.
you just it very much comes down to deal in the real world. Understand what you're dealing with, what is realistic,
That's
looking
right.
at the business, and don't get so caught up in, I got to buy this business, that you take your eyes off the ball of things, that all these other pieces that have to fall into place properly. Because if not, you're gonna get you get a hold in the bag, and it's just not gonna end well.
That's right. Have you ever seen so much marketing than these days regarding numerous influencers, numerous people coming into this space selling everything to help people buy a business?
Makes me want to puke, to be honest with you. I
Yes.
mean, I saw one recently, and I had one. There was an, I think it was a post that I had a short clip that it might have been on YouTube or LinkedIn or something. It was a
Mhm.
short clip related to a specific part of business acquisition, and talking about people, if they needed any help, to feel free to email me at any time. And we have this website, our website, that has all kinds of free articles and whatever. And
Mhm.
someone sent me a message. Please, if you can, direct them to our website as well. First of all, your business is not my business. Number one.
Mhm.
Number two, there's a whole ton of products that they were selling that were complete nonsense, and so it's everywhere. It doesn't stop. I mean, this is one of the things where I got re-engaged with this whole process, with trying to spread, the good word, the accurate word of what people should be doing to get to the finish line, and how they can buy a business in the proper way of doing things. It's just, again, it makes me vomit, makes my blood boil. It's sickening. And people, there's suckers falling for it while we're on this call. A few of them buy these programs.
Yes, they do.
Well,
Um,
good luck to them.
exactly. Well, we're going to get to our subject right now, which
Let's
which
go,
which
baby.
won't take long, Richard, because it is what it is. Um, did you know the SBA SOP, the recent changes in November, do not explicitly mention the requirement to take a subordinate lien on personal real estate to cover the shortfall of collateral of an SBA loan? Did you
It
know that?
doesn't it doesn't mention it, you're saying?
It's not in black or white.
So that it's up to the individual lender?
Boom. But I'll tell you
Say it
what,
again. Boom.
yes, yes. But that's the trick of the SOP. It's gray. It's just a guideline for
Yeah.
banks. And then the SBA says, you're the one giving the capital, you decide, but the SBA was meant to back up banks that do these loans strictly based on cash flow. It's
Right.
all about the cash flow, baby. We talk about
Yep.
it all the time, right?
Yep.
Now, if there is a collateral shortfall, which buying a business there will be because of the intangible assets in the blue sky, then the SBA advises the bank should take subordinate liens on any equity available of that real estate. And I do not know of any bank out there or a non-bank lender that said, no, we're not worried about that. We're going to finance a blue sky loan. Doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. And the way the way I look at it and tell prospective buyers who are going down the road of an SBA loan is when you buy a business, you do your best and you can mitigate and solve for most of the risk during the acquisition process. Things we teach and our materials teach how to do that, whether it be a customer concentration issue or a concern related to a lease expiring, whatever it may be, you can solve for or mitigate most and reduce most catastrophes to little incidents. There's always going to be a little bit of a risk. But understand that the world of an entrepreneur is always going to involve some risk. And I'm not suggesting that someone puts their house up. That's their own personal decision. But they need to understand the world of entrepreneurship. And if elements of risk in the deal never go crazy, but there's always going to be a piece of that. If the element of risk is something you cannot deal with or your spouse cannot deal with, A, I totally get it. B, if you can't deal with it, then you know what? You are probably much better suited to be an employee than an employer, because the risk doesn't end there. It's during the financing, when you run a business, there's elements of risk. You either have to learn how to deal with those, solve for them, but if you can't, and many people can't, and I get that. I'm not judging anybody. It's just maybe that world is not for you. I mean, to me, it's just that simple.
I'm going to add to that, Richard. If you are going to finance a business and you have equity in your home and you know that there's going to be a subordinate lien placed on it, you better have someone asking you, when do you plan to sell that home? And if the answer is you plan to sell your home in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe even in the next 4 to 5, you better think again about doing an SBA loan. And if a lender is saying to you up front, because they just want to get the loan on the books to earn their incentive, watch out, because those kind of transactional lenders are out there. If they're telling you, oh, no problem, just call the servicing department when you're ready to sell the home and they'll work it out for you and release that lien.
Yeah, of course they'll work it out for you and release the lien as soon as you pay them.
Yes,
of course. I mean, it's a due on sale clause. There's no escaping it. Now, you can recapitalize it and get another loan somewhere else, pay off the first loan, but they're not just forgetting about it. I saw Sia made a comment, by the way. It says, wow, never thought of it this way, Richard Parker. I would be so dumped if I put our house up, but I agree. And that's exactly the case. In some scenarios, both parties agree. They have to agree, but if they don't, you've got to be understandable.
That's right. And I would just want to add, CI is in the state of Texas. They're the only state in the United States where the SBA or the bank lender cannot take a subordinate lien on any homes in the state of Texas, because that's the Texas law. So, CI, you're fine. You don't have to worry about your home. Take out an SBA loan.
Oh yeah, right to the max.
That's right, to the max.
To the max. I know there were Florida something related to homestead, but we don't have to get that granular.
Yeah, you're right though. Florida's got some funky rules down there too.
Yeah, which they protect the homeowner and mostly from judgments or what have you, I believe. But
can I give 2 examples for our listeners?
3, same price.
Yeah, I'll make it quick because we got some questions.
Take as much time as you want. I have nothing to do this whole afternoon.
All right, I'm going to give 2 examples, and then we're going to get to who's the dupa and close out with Q&A. So, example number 1, if you're listening, I had a buyer. She purchased finance a retail pet store, profitable, great business. The deal was, I believe, like 1.5 million. She had equity in her primary residence, and she had 4 townhouses, duplexes, all with mortgages, but each one had some equity in it. And all 4 of those investment property duplexes were in her personal name. She didn't put them in an LLC. We had to take a lien on her primary residence and the 4 townhouses because they were all in her personal name.
They're all in her personal name.
So that was 5 subordinate liens, and the loan was still not 100% collateralized, which is okay because the SBA says it's all about cash flow, but the banks want to secure the additional collateral if the guarantor has it. So that's example number 1. Now, if she came to me maybe on her primary residence and said, Deb, I'm okay, taking subordinate liens on my townhomes, but I'm going to do a home equity loan on my primary residence to use some of that equity as cash toward the purchase finance of this business. As long as I know that and I write it up in the credit memo, perfectly acceptable back before November of 2023 if she had secondary household income to make that home equity loan payment.
Right.
Well, now that SOP policy's changed, and the SBA, being gray, as they always are gray, says there does not need to be secondary household income to pay that home equity loan payment that she's going to use for down payment.
Right.
But let's remember, ladies and gentlemen, the banks have the final say, and
Right.
not every bank is okay with the SBA SOP.
Right. Absolutely. And those are perfect examples. One thing I want to touch upon, I know we have the if I'm the DUPA and Q&A, but
Yeah.
it used to be a number of years ago where the banks were, per the SBA guidelines, were required to go after residential collateral if there was more than 25% equity in the home. I'm not sure if that's changed, but it's still, based on what you said, not being written black and white. It's up to the individual bank. It doesn't mean the case that it's always going to be that particular situation. But by and large, mostly, and you sit from a bank's perspective, if there's equity that they could further guarantee or secure their loan, even though the SBA is underwriting or guaranteeing a certain part of it, well, why wouldn't they go after it? Doesn't mean it's always the case, but you have to think about that. It's more than likely going to be the case.
Right on.
Now, what happens when if you have a home equity line of credit, you don't use it for your, because there was a point where, because of this 25% piece, people used to go take a home equity line of credit, which I always used to advise them to do, because it just get you over that 25% threshold, and then the banks don't go after you. There's no such threshold anymore, right? I mean, they would go after you if there's 10 or 20, like they don't calculate loan to value, or is there a certain limit that you've seen where if there's less than X amount of equity in the home, they won't go after it, or they won't require it?
Still less than 25%, Richard, but up to the underwriter's determination of what that home's value is worth.
Right. So, but there should be a case in those cases. It's still a good practice beforehand to have a home equity line of credit, even if you don't use it, because if it takes you below that threshold, you may be able to, use that as a workaround. It's not, I mean, it's beyond legal. It's perfect if you get that into place. But people should also understand that not every underwriter is going to agree. They may just pass on the loan.
Exactly. That's exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I tell that to people that call me trying to find a way to not put the lien on the home. I'm like, listen, if you're going to shoot north of a $2 million unsecured business acquisition loan, you better have some equity if you're in that north land, because that's going to make the underwriter feel comfortable.
Yep.
But they still choose to want to work the system, and to each his own.
Yeah, of course.
Like we said earlier, we're playing poker.
We're playing poker. Yep, to each his own. Perfect.
Well, I think it's time for Who's the Dupa. What do you say?
Let her rip, baby.
Let it rip. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Was that you?
Yes, it was.
Oh, jeez, man.
Excuse me.
Thank you. All right.
No problem.
Listen up. My buddy, Jay, his family has a lot of money because his dad owns a big construction business. And he keeps telling me, he's my buddy, that it's better to be the boss than to work for someone. And he always asks me why I don't operate or start up my own business, because he's been working for his dad in a construction company for over 9 years. Okay. Did you follow me there? So Buddy's best friend, Jay, works for dad's company for 9 years as the general manager. So his buddy tries to give entrepreneurship advice to him, but doesn't really understand how hard it is to run a business from scratch. He's just, the son that's learned the business from dad, but dad's the one that started from scratch. So his buddy said to Jay, that business really isn't yours. So why do you keep calling it your business? You're working there. You're a W-2 employee. You don't own it. and you need your dad's approval for big business decisions. He's telling Jay, you're more like an employee in the family's company than claiming to be an owner. You're not an owner of the business. Ever since I told my buddy Jay that, we haven't spoken for 2 years. Did I go too far? He lost a friendship, Richard, because he hurt Jay's feelings, the son who's not an owner of the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. So my answer, he's not a dupa, he's an a-hole.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. There's some speculation here, but Buddy sounds like he probably doesn't own his own business. He's just stirring the pot. You get this all the time. All the naysayers, okay, they're just taking shots at someone else. Buddy sounds like someone who has zero entrepreneurial spirit blood running through his veins, and he's just taking shots. So from the beginning, I understand if you have that. If Jay went to him and saying, "Here's my dilemma. I'm working for my dad. Been here 9 years. I really don't feel like I have ownership," and ask him to weigh in on it. That's a different story than Buddy just speculating and jumping right in and dispensing advice, because the reality is Jay might be totally cool with this. Jay and his dad may have already worked it out that over the course of time he's going to inherit it. He may have a certain equity that he's going to get. He may get a piece of it when they sell. So Buddy is, as far as I'm concerned, based on these facts, I may be missing it, he's a complete a-hole.
I agree. And you know what? Would you say a lot of friends out there perhaps have something to say about the small business owners?
All the time. When
All
you
the
get
time.
business buyers, I tell every one of them, and even in the course, understand that the people around you, people, friends, family, whatever, some of them don't want you to get hurt. So they're going to tell you not to do it. They don't want you to see to absorb the risk. But all the people that don't really care deeply about you, their opinion is going to more than likely be negative, because they don't have their
Yeah.
cojones to do what you're planning to do. And so I see that repeatedly, where it's just the naysayers and the people that never get anything done, and they're just knocking everybody else because they just can't they just won't do it themselves. And
That's
so,
right.
you just have to put on your blinders. You take the advice from the right people. But yeah, that it happens. I see it all the time.
You know what? I would love to finance that business for Jay once Daddy passes it on to him, because he is the perfect key employee, baby.
He certainly is. And you know what? He would have no problem getting financing.
He would
And you
not.
know what? And he's very happy. I'm sure he's very happy.
He'd
Unless
be the one for the 1% down, Richard. That's the deal right
That's the deal,
there.
baby. Yes.
You
So
know
the
it.
dupa, we agree on the dupa.
We
Perfect.
agree on the dupa. Awesome. All right, we got some Q&A, and they're going to be put up on the screen here, right in the window, Richard.
Perfect.
And yeah, if you're listening, if you're a business broker, a buyer or seller, just put in the comments for us. We like to know who we're talking to, or if you're just a loyal listener. Sia is going to put up some questions here. All right, Richard, take it away. Here's one from Patrick.
If the bank loses or loses lending conditions to approve those loans, ninja type loans, we are all in trouble. Okay, that's got it. Question.
Yeah.
How does the SBA evaluate the value of the home equity being pledged? I'm sure it's through general appraisal, but Deb, if there's anything different than that, jump right in.
Yeah. Again, bank by bank, their decisions of how they value homes. Depending upon the amount of equity, it may be a full boat appraisal, depending upon the size of the deal. If it's not much equity, it might just be a standard desktop valuation search. I think back to the year 2020, 2021. If you all recall, the home sales market was like crazy. The values were just skyrocketing. So that 25% rule during those times, I witnessed bank underwriters saying, oh no, we're taking a subordinate lien because your home in Florida, it's going to be worth probably 50 grand more in the next 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
So again, great question, Jody. Thank you. All depends upon the underwriter and the bank that you're working with. There's no rhyme or reason, but if it's a lot of equity, third-party appraisal. If it's minimal and a smaller size deal, perhaps a desktop and the underwriter's determination.
Got it. Oh, here's one from Patrick, which I just had this conversation with someone yesterday about, because it's a great point. He talks about concerns around falling housing prices. So if I could jump in for a second, and Deb, then certainly want to get your perspective. There's two prongs to this related to housing prices and the buying and selling businesses, because they're really related. So the first part is related to what we're talking about today, and an underwriter looking at it and how they're going to value a house and appraise a house. And they use, transactions, mostly comps, and might be a broker's opinion of value. But whatever methodology they use, it varies from location to location, because in Florida, house prices are going bananas, and in other places they're declining. So it's really unique to each area, and the extent to which they want to have an appraisal, whether, again, it's just on Zillow or a full appraisal. But the other part to all of this is housing prices. When they start to decline, or people are feeling the pinch, it impacts people's confidence. And what happens is you see, generally speaking, the market constrict of individuals who are looking to acquire businesses, because their confidence starts to decline. And as their confidence declines, they're less willing to take potential risks or to buy businesses. They start to think, well, if house prices are declining, I don't have the same equity. If the interest rates are going up, if I have to refinance, or economy is shrinking, I may have to lose my job. So you get all of that. So that impacts the market. But at the same time, when house prices are rising, people become euphoric, and they feel infinitely more confident about the market, and entrepreneurship starts to really ramp up, and people's desire to go into business. So, I mean, there's really, the two parts is related to the underwriting, but there's also the overall confidence or lack thereof in the market that really gets impacted as home prices rise or fall in each area.
That's amazing. Mindset, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd like to add to the falling house prices. If you have an SBA loan and the market's has fallen and your home is being used for collateral, it's not going to impact. You still owe the money. The lien's going to still stay on that home no matter what.
Right.
And then another follow-up I would like to add. This was a question posed to me over the last week. A renter. Yes, renters can buy businesses and renters can get bank loans backed by the SBA. But his question was, is this going to impact me when I shop and buy a home a year after I buy the business?
Right.
Well, the SBA and the bank aren't going to come at you a year later and say, hey, Richard, you bought a home, so we're going to tack a lien on it. No, that's not going to happen. That can't happen. But what will happen, we must remember, when you buy a business, you now have an owner officer's salary as reported on your business tax returns. And the mortgage lender, the underwriter, is going to want to see your financials of the business to make sure it's financially sound, that you got a salary and enough personal income to take care of your personal expenses, covering the whole global picture.
Right. Got it.
It does change.
It does change.
Yeah. So.
And by the way, on just to tag along to one of the points, you said that if the house prices, the value of the home declines, and you decide to sell it, it's like, tough for you. But on the other hand, the bank is not coming back to you to add more collateral to the loan if they're in second position. So if they're second position, if the value of the home or the equity becomes less than their second position, they're not coming back to renegotiate. They're in. So there's both sides of that equation. Yeah, it may go down, but you don't have to worry. They're not coming back and asking for more equity or more collateral. So it just happens. And hopefully, you stay in it long enough, house prices will over time increase, and except for some markets where it could have, something catastrophic happen. But, generally speaking, you should be okay. But these are all really important considerations for people to make before they jump in and collateralize a loan.
And I hear you mention, second position. Yes, we will do business acquisition financing with a third position. So, yeah, I mean, there's equity. I have seen these deals get done where a third lien, meaning is subordinate to your first mortgage holder, your second mortgage holder, and the SBA is taking a third lien on whatever remaining equity is available.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
It really is.
Here we got one. What steps shall small business owners take to mitigate the risks involved in pledging their home equity for financing? To mitigate the
I'll
risks.
tell you what, buy a good business.
Thank you. I
Don't
like
buy a
that.
shit business. Don't buy a business that you were meant to run. Your skills match it. It's a good business. You're confident. And again, the match is critical, but it's a good business. It's got historical financials.
Mhm.
It's not subjected to these, roller coaster revenues and profits. It's stability. We've talked about the fact personally, I like growth is very sexy, but stability adds a lot of value. And so the best way to mitigate it is buy a good business
Yeah.
that you are perfectly suited to operate. That's the best way.
Like Jay and buying his father's construction business
Yeah,
from.
he knows what's going on every day.
Yes, he
I'll tell
does.
you one thing though, if Buddy buys that business, the business going out of business pretty quickly.
You know it. It's true.
Of
It's
course, I'll bet on that right now. I don't even know anyone if we're
That's
standing
right.
next to me
Oh,
because he's a know-it-all.
he's a
Yeah,
naysayer.
naysayer.
All right. Well, I think we wrapped up our questions. Maybe you can put up for our loyal listeners, see the seller's QR code, and Richard can speak to that. Phew, brain's a little slow
No,
there.
it's actually your brain is working. Deb's been up most of the night.
My
Her
husband's
husband's
passing a kidney.
he's passing a kidney stone, not his
Oh,
kidney.
he's passing a kidney stone. Not
If he passes a kidney, you're becoming a donor. Okay.
There you go. I was on the National Kidney Donor Registry at one time
Very
in my
good for
life,
you.
so I would give him my kidney if I had to.
One of my oldest friends, she donated her kidney to which is now her late father, who lived for many years thereafter, and her father afterwards bought her a, uh a diamond kidney shape necklace.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, yeah.
That's a
So,
great story.
so here's the 10 things sellers won't tell you. We've talked about this before. Terrific report. If you're thinking about buying a business, and if you're thinking about selling a business, something you should be aware of as well is these are not legal issues that a seller is absolutely obligated to disclose as material items in the sale, but there's certain things that they won't tell you unless you ask them, or there's certain things that they may say to you that aren't 100% accurate, not necessarily lies, such as what's happening to the customers after a sale, any concerns, key employees, if there's any issues related to leases or the competition or anything that they've heard about. So all these things that you as a buyer need to investigate, where the seller may not disclose it, probably won't disclose it. And even if you do ask them, they may not give you a perfectly clear picture. So I call them the 10 things sellers won't tell you. And Deb contributed one specific section related to the financing, because very often they'll talk about how they will or will not provide any financing. And so you should be aware of that. And it covers deal terms, competition, clients, employees, the marketplace. Terrific read. It's about 40 pages, but it's really a terrific read, and you'll find it very, very helpful. How's that for a
I love it.
that's a self-serving sales pitch?
You're hired, man. Put that in a commercial on TV.
Thank you.
We need
Okay.
to speak more about, small business acquisition deals on the evening news. I mean, come on, we got to save small businesses, America.
We certainly do. And
That's
people need to
right.
patronize them. You really need to go out of your way. You
Yes.
really need to go out of your way. It's very easy to, no disrespect, very easy to go to Home Depot, but it's, if it's at the
Right.
local hardware store, go
Yeah.
there.
If we don't support small, we're going to be owned completely by the big. And I would
Yeah,
like
because the retail is changing so dramatically.
Yeah.
I mean, in a generation now, who knows if we'll even have shopping centers? I mean, it's really
Right?
frightening. But you
It
got to
is.
go out of your way to support small business, as long as what they're providing is similar and reasonable, of course. But
Mhm.
you really got to go out of your way. It's
Yes, you
it's
do.
it's so important. It's the engine that drives the whole U.S. economy.
That's right. It is. And speaking of small businesses, can we give a shout out to our producer of our show, Brilliant Beam Media?
See,
And
yeah,
yeah,
we really want to be a. Go ahead.
I love that. So for those of you that are a small business owner or maybe even a solopreneur, listen, if you need help with anything website related, marketing related, shorts, YouTubes, you name it, Brilliant Beam Media, they're small, but they have a big heart. I'm going to
And
tell you
big talent.
Yes, just lean on them. She had her QR code up. That's our sponsor and our backstage gal. We love her to pieces. See ya. So I think we wrapped everything up, Richard.
Perfect. Work fast and go home early. I'm done.
My favorite word from you is perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we come back next week, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern with more business buying banter. Until next time, see ya.
Ciao for now.
Bye.
Bye.